Hi, Eric. Hi.
How are you?
Well, I'm good.
How
We're
are
back.
you?
We're back in studio.
Yay.
Well,
Congratulations.
thank you. Well, one thing that never changes is the mainstream media.
Yeah.
No matter what changes in our lives after. Dems are always in disarray, as you say.
Always.
The latest Washington Post headline, Biden's big agenda is imperiled as his priorities stall in Congress and debt fight looms. You sound like Dems in disarray. Am I right? You said, read this piece. You think today's GOP is a mainstream, rational, passive entity, and if Biden can't get his agenda passed, it's because he's just not trying hard enough. I mean, it is really kind of extraordinary with this iteration of the GOP, isn't it?
Yeah, and the other thing that's kind of odd is they talk about Biden can't get his agenda passed. His number one priority when he became president was to get this country vaccinated, get it up off the floor, open the economy, open the schools, open the country, and he did it. And I think he made it look too easy because the press is like, oh, that didn't really count.
Yeah. Now what? Now what's next?
Yeah. Now what else is not working? I mean, it is amazing what he was able to do, what his team was able to do, the vaccination numbers. It's the envy of the world. What the United States has done.
Went from worst to first. We were in an article,
exactly,
Eric, the five worst responses in the world. Donald Trump in America, right up there in the top 5. Brazil. I mean, it's just right. Until Biden came in, you're absolutely right. And made it,
He did exactly what he promised. Yeah, he did exactly what he promised he was going to do, and he's really got very little credit. I mean, if you look at the press, I wrote a piece we talked about a month ago. If Biden was a Republican, they would be toasting him as the new Ronald Reagan in terms of his approval rating and his accomplishments and things like that. But instead of giving him credit for this amazing vaccination performance, that Washington Post piece, well, the rest of his agenda is in peril. He's facing all these crises. Well, he's not really. But it's really interesting because they always want to pitch the Dems in disarray. That's the fallback position.
Eric, I mean, the last guy left in the 30s, which is where he was most of the time. Biden's in the 60s, and there's no story that he's double his immediate predecessor that was just here.
He's at, and we've talked about this. He's at 96, 98% among Democrats.
Yeah.
There's never been a Democratic president this popular among Democratic voters in the history of modern polling.
Yeah.
And now, where are the Biden voters?
Now that I'm fully vaxxed, Eric, I went and sat in a diner waiting to be interviewed. A Biden
We're
voter.
all here. We're all waiting.
Nobody had anything. I am wearing my Kamala Harris t-shirt for you because this is what I thought. You just wrote a piece called "Now Politico's Just Making Stuff Up." Good grief.
Yeah.
I love that only you and Charlie Brown use good grief. But anyway,
I was thinking of you.
I wondered where this came from, but you said President Joe Biden's getting trashed by Democrats over the Middle East. Vice President Kamala Harris isn't acknowledging her Asian heritage. These were 2 breathless dispatches Politico posted this week. I remember reading that and I thought, who's saying Kamala Harris is focusing too much on being the first African-American vice president and not enough on being the first Asian?
Right.
I was like, what? Who's saying that? And you're like, nobody. Nobody's saying that, right?
Yeah, and that was my point with both those pieces, which came out 24 hours apart, and within 24 hours, and they struck me as kind of dramatic. Look, I mean, you always can spin a headline. You always kind of reporters go out and they try often with a premise in mind, and they try to prove it rather than doing the other way around. But you can't, the first one was, Democrats trash Biden over the Middle East. That's a very incendiary claim. That's not a minor gotcha story about he's wearing the wrong color suit. Well, the Middle East is a
yeah. And I remember reading Democrats demand a ceasefire. That headline happened after Biden already got a ceasefire with quiet diplomacy behind the scenes, right? Yes.
Yeah, and so the Politico is trying to present this idea that Biden was under siege at home. A huge chunk of the Democratic Party was furious with how he was handling the Middle East. And I read the headline. I thought, okay, am I missing something? Seven Democratic senators quoted, not one of them in the ballpark of trashing Biden.
Yeah,
and it's just it's beyond clickbait. It's just inventing news. It's certainly playing off Republican talking points. They want this idea that Biden can't handle the Middle East crisis. The party is fracturing and Dems in disarray. So it's not only lazy, but it's reading off, singing from the Republican choir. And then the Kamala Harris piece was the same thing. She's being criticized for, ignoring her Asian heritage. And again, so I thought, wow, I haven't really seen that. Maybe I'm not in tuned enough. I read the story. Nobody. Oh, no, that's not true. At the very end, there was some random Republican doctor from Mississippi who gives money to Republicans, saying that she's doing that. Nobody else of consequence in the story is doing that.
She actually gave a beautiful speech. You saw it, right? When the anti-Asian hate crime bill passed.
Right, last Wednesday.
So now that that's happened, what's this week? She doesn't mention having a vagina enough. Why does she not focus on being the first woman vice president? I mean, we joke about it. It will happen. It will happen. Feminist groups are in that she's focusing too much on being black and Asian and not enough on being a woman. I mean, it's insane.
Well, look, there's a couple of things going on. Look, when Trump was president, it was so easy. Reporters woke up every day. No one had to search more than 8 minutes for a story. It was total chaos, controversy, outrageous comments. You could 24/7, as in terms of the news cycle. Reporters wake up now for the Biden administration, and it's kind of tricky. The stories aren't just low-hanging fruit, and so what do? They're still wed to this, the Trump narrative or the Trump culture where we got to produce this controversy. Yeah. So if in the terms of, in the case of political, they're literally just inventing controversy. It's really
Here's a note. We like it. We like the non-chaotic.
We can
incessant news cycles. We like it.
We can handle it. Yes.
Yeah. As you said, GOP just rejected a plan for a January 6th commission, for God's sakes. But hey, it's really all about Democrats in disarray. Mm-hmm. I mean, okay. Anyway.
Real quick, because you just played that Cory Booker quote from the Sunday show, and he's talking about the commission. I mean, it's really extraordinary. I don't know if you saw Senator Blunt on Fox over the weekend. This is the latest talking point. It's a new one. They're desperate. They're not sure what to say about the commission.
Oh, wait, now that you set us up, here it is. Here's Eric setting up our soundbite.
First of all, I think I said a minute ago what happened 9/11. Obviously, I meant what happened January 6th. Those are clearly, in my time in the Congress, the two seminal moments where the country, the capital city itself, under an attack that we wouldn't have anticipated. But I do think that the 9/11 Commission had a lot more information available to it when it started than this one would have.
Eric, am I taking crazy pills? Everyone knew this was going to happen. It was all open over social media. It wasn't even like a presidential daily briefing to Bush. This was everywhere. They were very obviously they had T-shirts pre-printed saying "Stop the Steal" and whatever, right?
Yeah, and he's a member of the GOP leadership. He's going on the national Sunday shows. I tweeted yesterday, nothing, and the clip goes longer. Nothing he said made sense. It was completely incoherent. The new talking point is that it's too soon for a January 6th commission. He was going on to say, the 9/11 commission, which I thought was a good idea, that didn't start until didn't start until almost a year after the attack. So he said it's too soon to do a commission on the insurrection. We don't have enough information. And then he later said, well, there's going to be books written about this. Do we really need a commission? I mean, it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It's
let's let it go.
How are you supposed to deal with people like this?
Yeah, let's let it go down the memory hole so that people don't forget. I mean, it's anyway. I love you. That was never a better use of statement just about the coverage of the Biden administration. You just said heads you lose, tails you lose.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. You also said refusal to use voter suppression is quickly approaching a 4-year debacle of not using the word Trump lies. I mean, it's voter suppression. It's not. I mean, that's the thing. Eric, I feel like some days I'm the only one with the level of alarm. I mean, I know there are some people, but what is happening here? Yeah. This is an ongoing coup. It just started January, 6th. It didn't, right? Yeah. It is ongoing in Arizona and now Georgia, and these laws that are just made up from Trump's lies. And they're that's not even the most important part about the voter suppression, right? It's we can just overturn it if we don't like it. I mean, that's what these laws are, right?
Yeah, we talked about, I think, last week, Trump failed to be, he wasn't able to get millions of votes thrown out last time. And so the Republican Party, instead of looking at that and saying, that's really kind of anti-democratic, they're going to spend the next 4 years making sure in 2024 they have the infrastructure in place to throw out millions of votes. But, the voter suppression thing, there's a couple good news. That was a good New York Times piece they did on the front story. A lot of press is paying a lot of attention to these laws. And the New York Times, now that Trump is safely out of office, talks about his election lies. It was 4 years late, but that's a good thing that it's constantly referred to as lies. But why are we dancing around voter suppression? Why are we doing these good, in-depth, page-one stories? And again, just burning through the thesaurus, trying to come up with ways to not call it voter suppression. Is that such a dangerous term to use when it's obviously what's happening?
Yeah. When you cut voting hours and drop boxes and whatever, it's suppressing the vote. I mean, this is what it is. Anyway,
everything imaginable.
Rick Santorum got fired. Let's take a moment to say.
Very quietly.
But you also said it's not up to CNN and other media players to hire and platform bad actors like Santorum simply because the conservative movement is filled with so many bad actors. I mean, how many is this that they've had to fire because they're just, I don't know what to say. But this isn't what took so long is what most people were saying. Right?
Yeah, and yes, he showed up on Chris Cuomo's show a week after he made those ridiculous comments about white colonialists showed up here and there was nobody here. We started from scratch. Yeah. But CNN would not touch that story for a month. They didn't report about it. They didn't report about the controversy. It's always fascinating when news organizations that demand transparency from public officials refuse to provide any transparency for themselves. But the conundrum CNN has had all through the Trump years, they desperately want to be that kind of the center outlet, which means you have people on both sides, but they cannot find, you cannot, by definition, really cannot employ Trump supporters who are coherent and rational and don't lie nonstop.
Thank you.
That's the problem they're facing. And I think they're realizing that and they're just saying goodbye to Santorum.
Yeah. Real quick, thank you for the shout out to Professor Nicole Hannah-Jones. I mean, you said Fox News rails against liberal cancel culture, but conservatives love to silence voices they disagree with. Latest example, University of North Carolina, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist who oversaw the 1619 Project was denied tenure. And by the way, MacArthur Genius Award, not just Pulitzer's, Polk. I mean, way overqualified for tenure anywhere. And and they just canceled Liz Cheney. I mean, they're such hypocrites. They're fine with cancel culture as long as it's whoever they don't like for whatever reason.
Yeah, the dean of the journalism school at the University of North Carolina said they had never had a tenured application that was stalled at the board of trustees like this one was. And the other disturbing case last week, and I just wrote about this at PressRun, was the AP firing that young reporter. Yeah, and because she was the target of the right-wing mob, and the head of the AP is now going to become the editor of the Washington Post. So our Washington Post reporters wondering, hey, when do we get thrown under the bus when Fox News comes after us? It's really disturbing.
Yeah, well, and it makes you absolutely essential. So I feel like you may be behind the whole thing. Love you, Eric. Read The Essential Eric Boehlert every week.
That's right.
Subscribe to his Substack. If you have not heard of the Sexy Liberal Podcasting Network, your podcasting superstation, you suck. I mean, we have the smartest, funniest liberals in the country. Stephanie Miller's Happy Hour. We have John Fugelsang. We have Hal Sparks, Frangela, Final Word and Idiot of the Week. We have Bob Seska. Oh my God. We have Jody Hamilton from The Bunker. We have Start Me Up with Kimberly Johnson. We have Unprecedented. We have the smartest, funniest podcast, period. Get it now. SexyLiberal.com.